Welcome to Living Life in the End for the Successful and Fulfilled Woman. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, the Liberated Lawyer. I help women to get everything they desire in life by equipping them with powerful strategies to achieve the fulfillment they desire and deserve. Who said you can't have it all? Clearly, they did not know about living life in the end. When women make powerful decisions and create great strategies, they can have everything they desire in life. Girlfriend, forget about choosing between being successful or fulfilled. You can be successful and fulfilled. It's time. It's time for you to get everything you desire and deserve. It's time for you to live your life on purpose. It's time for you to live a life that is fulfilled, meaningful, and full of joy. It's time for you to walk boldly in the power of your decisions. If you are going to be in this world, you need to be fulfilled in this life. Life is too long to be unfulfilled. Join me for another episode of Living Life in the End, where you learn how to live fulfilled, fit, and free. Hey, it's time for Musing from the Mind of Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts to help you live your life in the end. Girl, I've got something on my mind. You know, sometimes we expect perfection in our lives, and we live a lie to uphold a standard that is unrealistic. I dare say that the pursuit of perfection, more poignantly stated, the state of perfectionism, is one of the biggest detriments to our fulfillment. Because the truth is, fulfillment is not perfect. It is imperfect in so many different respects. And when we set a standard for our lives that we must be perfect, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to grow and evolve. Because perfection, quite honestly, is stifling. Because it does not give you any room to grow. And if you're really honest with yourself, you do not grow when you are perfect. You grow from the mistakes and shortcomings and failures, quite frankly, that you experience that get you to a state of perfection. And perfection is always relative because you can do it perfectly today, but it requires a continued evolution. And if you do not embrace the continued evolution, you'll do it the same way every time, seeking to recreate that moment of perfection rather than allowing yourself to evolve and expand your capacity. And so this episode speaks to the heart of those perfectionists out there. I want you to know that you don't have anything to prove. I am a recovering perfectionist. There was a time in my life when I believed that I had to do everything perfect. And in doing everything perfect meant that I was putting myself in a box and robbing myself of the opportunity to truly become the best and highest version of me. Because most often, how we define perfect for ourselves is a third party standard. It's some standard that our parents have set for us, society has set for us, somebody, something that doesn't even really know who we are. And here's the truth that I want you to embrace: you don't owe anyone a version of your life that suits their expectations. You don't owe anyone anything. You only owe yourself the freedom of showing up in your truth, showing up in your authenticity, and being the real you every time. Because here's the truth about perfectionism: perfectionism stilts your growth because you become so concerned with coloring inside the crayons, coloring inside the lines, that you don't take chances, you don't take risks, you don't allow yourself the freedom of experimenting. And all greatness begins with an experiment. Someone at some point decides, I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to try something else. And the something else becomes something great. And if you desire true greatness in your life, you must give yourself the opportunity to expand your capacity, which means that you must accept that you will not always hit the mark perfectly every time. And if you're really honest about anything that you've ever achieved in your life, what you are the most proud of, what you consider to be a high achievement in your life, you didn't achieve that the first time. It took practice, it took effort, it took repetition, it took you doing things over and over again and learning what worked and what didn't. And my question to you is, if that's how you've achieved your greatness, what is wrong with you allowing yourself to try new things and take a risk and fall short sometime? How are you going to know if you are operating at your highest and best level if you never push yourself outside of this box of perfection? You're worth showing up as your authentic self. Let's just say that you have failed at something. Let's just say you have a relationship that ended, a marriage that ended, a job where you didn't get the promotion that you thought you should have, or a career that in your mind is dead end. What if that's the case? What if you don't look the way you desire to look? Maybe you are not the body image that you desire. What does any of that have to do with who you really are? Nothing. Those are moments in time. Those are experiences that have materialized in your life, but none of them define who you are unless you choose to allow them to do so. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are. You only need to live in your own truth. Living a lie eats away at your soul. And that may sound pretty harsh, living a lie. Well, let's break it down. If you are showing up in spaces and you are not being your authentic self, you are showing up as someone else. You're acting, you're putting on a face, you're wearing a mask. You are not being truthful. And being truthful doesn't mean you tell all your business. It doesn't mean that you show no discretion in the bounds between what you hold tight to the vest and what you share publicly. But what it does mean is that when you show up, you own who you are and who you're not. Because if you are in any space where the real you is less than acceptable, that's not your space, and they don't deserve your truth to begin with. We all experience life along the spectrum. We have our highs and we have our lows. And the one thing that I have learned to accept and really embrace, not just accept, is that the low is just important in my life as the high, because the lows have defined me just as much as the highs have. And one of the most powerful things that I have done for myself recently was to write a love letter to my 2017 self. And this was an exercise that was given to me by my coach as part of my assignments that she had me do. And it was very important because in writing that love letter to my 2017 self, I was able to fully appreciate how everything I had deemed as a failure that happened during that time, really it's 2016, but in 2017, I made the bold decision to move to Atlanta and start my life over. And the long and short of it is things did not go as planned at all. I did not have this great successful career. My business completely failed. I had a personal, I'd say a mental breakdown. I was severely depressed as a result of kind of all the things that had happened. And I just was not in a good space. And I was ashamed of that, quite honestly. I was ashamed that my marriage had ended. I was ashamed that my business had failed. I was ashamed that my family in its new form really wasn't the way I desired. There were a lot of things I was ashamed of. But those are the things that have made me who I am today. And when I embrace my failures, it one humanizes me, but it also helps me to recognize just how much of a badass I am. Because the things that I have overcome have made me better, have made me stronger, and give me a much more interesting story. Now, I honestly believe I could have had a great story without all of this stuff, but that's the hand I was given. And so I can either pretend like none of that happened and show up and be fake and pretend like everything's perfect. I'm perfect and I've never failed a day in my life. Or I can be honest about the fact that I did experience those things and I have a story to tell. And you can learn something from me because of the things I've overcome. And so it's just important for us to always live our truth. Because the thing that we are ashamed of is the very struggle someone else is going through. And when we're honest about where we've been and how we've overcome, we can inspire someone else. Also, people respect the truth. Genuine people do. And it is far more damaging to live a lie and be found out and have folks looking at you crazy than it is to live your truth and have people understand the reality of who you are and how great you are in spite of any failure or season ending that you have experienced. So I just want to leave you with this, that you know there are five ways I believe that we should always look to living our truth. And it's not about making ourselves look better. It's not about how anyone sees us. It's about having peace in our own spirit about who we are. Because it doesn't matter what other people think of you if you are not at peace with what you think of you. So, here are 5 things that I want you to think about. The first thing is just to own your own mistakes. Everybody makes them. Everybody makes a mistake. And one of the more powerful things I remember, I was attending a conference hosted by Marshawn Evans Daniels. I don't know, this was back in 2013, I think. But she made this statement and it stuck with me. You are not your mistakes. You are not your mistake. So even though you've made a mistake, you are not a mistake. You just happen to have experienced something that fell short of a goal or otherwise did not turn out the way you desired it. But own your mistakes. You cannot grow until you own your mistakes, and you cannot fix what you will not face. The second thing is own your failures. Y'all, I could write a book. Well, actually, I have. Matter of fact, I've written 2 books about my failures. And here's what being honest about my failures. Not everybody has to write a book, and I'm not suggesting that you do. But when I was honest, or when I have been honest about my failures, it gives me the ability to shape my own narrative. I get to tell my story. I get to tell about my failures from my perspective. I get to shine the best light on how I screwed something up. And when you're honest about things not going as planned, you create your own narrative that allows you to frame it in the perspective that shows your opportunity for growth. So own your failures. The third thing is to always show up as yourself. Who else you gonna be? Do you know how hard it is to act like everything is perfect? Can you imagine? And some of you may be imagining right now because you're going through it, just the stress that you place up on yourself when you are trying to uphold some standard that is not your reality. Can you imagine the stress that you feel when you wonder, what's going to happen when everybody finds out? Because the truth is, most of the time, the truth that you are trying to live up to, everybody already has figured out anyway, and they wondering when you're going to be honest about what's really happened. I never will forget, I read this book years ago. I think it was, I don't remember it. I don't remember the name of it. Sugar in My Coffee, or Milk in My Coffee, I think was the name of it. But anyway, it was this book about a woman who had grown up in an impoverished situation and married a wealthy man. And when she married the wealthy man, she kind of took on this persona of perfection, and she was hoity-toity and looking down on everybody and really pretending as if she had been rich her entire life and did not own up. I think even her name wasn't the right thing. And then when I think her husband passed, she began to realize that everybody knew about the secret that she had been trying to hide for so long. And I think the last line in the book, or the last statement that somebody made to her, was the only thing secret about her secret was how many people knew it. And I always think about that. And when we are hiding out in our lives, we are doing that sometimes for naught, because the truth always surfaces, and there's always someone who knows, and it always shows up, because that's what truth is. Truth is the light. So it's always going to come through any darkness. And many times the only thing secret about your secret is how many people knows it. And so show up as yourself, because that is the best and highest version of you. When you don't show up as yourself, you're showing up as a counterfeit. And people don't like counterfeits. People don't like fakes. And you will lose more respect from the people you're trying to impress by portraying this air of perfection when they find out that you have been purposefully lying to them. So show up as yourself, be authentic. The fourth thing is to live the life that fulfills you unapologetically. So many of us are walking around playing a part in someone else's script. We're living a script that someone else has written for us. And we don't even like the part. And it shows, and we're miserable. And the other person is happy, or people, or community, or society, or whatever. And we're miserable. But I always say life is too long to be unfulfilled. And living a lie is unfulfilling because it eats away at your soul. So live the life that fulfills you unapologetically. Who cares what somebody else thinks? Who cares? Be a good person. Show up with great energy. Be someone who stands for something and has a meaningful and joyful life. That will have more impact on others than pretending to be someone you're not because you think that's the way other people think you ought to be. And the fifth thing I will say is just don't ever be embarrassed by the seasons in your life. Marriage is in, jobs in, your body changes. Shit happens. Don't be embarrassed about that. Don't I always say comparison is the thief of joy. And when you're comparing your life to someone else's, and someone else has a marriage that has been 40 something years and they the happiest and they love each other, and you've been married for 10 years and you can't stand the person you're married to, and you don't want to get out the marriage because you're worried that everybody is going to think you're a failure because you got a divorce. A divorce is not failure. A divorce, I believe, is a recognition that a season has ended. It is just a recognition that a season has ended. Sometimes who we love is intended to be the love of our lives. And they are the love of our lives when we start. But not all things have a season of infinity. Some relationships are time based. And when they reach their maturation, the next step is for you to release that relationship and move on to another. Same thing with jobs. Same thing with life. Life is not static, it is dynamic, it is meant to change. There are some things in our lives that are seasonal, cyclical. Well, seasonal in that they have a beginning and they have an end. Some things are just evolving. And one ending is not truly an ending, but it's a transformation into the next. And you will rob yourself of the next because you're holding on to the past because you're afraid of what people are going to think when you make that transition. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about one season ending so that another season can begin. And the last thing that I want to leave you with is this: you only have one life to live, just one. That life is made up of several phases, highs, lows, all of these beautiful things and some ugly things too. But live the life that you have firmly grounded in your truth. That's all you owe people. You really don't owe them that, but you owe it to yourself. Good, bad, or ugly, your truth is your truth. Be true to yourself. Be true to what you believe. Be true to who you are and who you're not. It's time to stop faking the funk. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for joining me for another Musing from the Mind of Dr. SDB, where I share poignant thoughts that help you live your life in the end. I hope you learned something. I hope you felt something. But most of all, girl, I hope you do something. Fulfillment won't happen because you desire it. It will happen because you decide to go get it. Let's get it. This episode was brought to you by Rejuvenate, Radiate, Celebrate You Retreat, taking place November 15th through the 17th, 2024, at the Limelight Inn in Dahlonega, Georgia. Join us for a weekend of transformation, rejuvenation, and empowerment. You can discover yourself, connect with like minded women, and emerge renewed and inspired. Our thoughtfully curated programming at the Rejuvenate, Radiate, Celebrate You retreat is designed to guide you through a comprehensive journey of transformation, rejuvenation, and self discovery. You can join us for a harmonious blend of insightful sessions, invigorating activities, and meaningful interactions, all aimed at helping you embrace your fullest potential. If you are ready to join our golden flutter of women committed to being the highest and best version of themselves, please email the team at christopoulos.com with the subject line Golden Flutter, and you will receive an invitation. We hope that you will join this transformative experience to rejuvenate, radiate, celebrate you. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Living Life in the Ann for the successful and fulfilled woman. Please be sure to let me know what made you feel something, what you learned, and what moved you to action. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on a great conversation. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast and let me know how you are living life in the end. Life is too long to be unfulfilled. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Tell someone else to listen for themselves. We should all be fulfilled. Remember, your life is the product of your choices. Choose to commit to bringing the desires of your heart to completion. You don't get what you deserve until you get what you decide. Life is too long to be unfulfilled.